Hey guys, so sometimes I get really excited to review a fragrance, and that's how I know, and that's how you can know that it's going to be a good one. I still review fragrances when I don't like them, and you probably can relate. You know, sometimes you get your nose on something new and then you're disappointed, right? But I still have to review those just so, you know, I can give you some information. So today's review is on Acqua di Parma's Colonia Essenza, right? And I have the small bottle here, okay? So, you know, the reason I'm doing this review, and this is a review of this, but also a comparison with Acqua di Parma Colonia Intensa, right? And the reason I'm doing this comparison is, you know, I reviewed this one, the Intensa, not too long ago. And somebody commented, you know, is it better than Essenza, and how does it perform? You know, and I thought the question of, you know, which one should you get, right? If you're considering Colonia from Acqua di Parma, it's a good question because these are, I mean, this one I think you're probably more familiar with. You hear about it more. But you know, not everyone wants to spend money on multiple colonias. So I'll start out by saying I really like them both, and you know, both are supremely blended, and they're 10 out of 10 in my book. So you can't go wrong with either choice. But actually, you know, in terms of the scent, they're actually, to me, in quite different categories, right? So I think depending on your personal preference, you'll lean heavily towards one or the other. In short, you know, this one's Essenza is a more soapy, citrus floral fragrance, and I see this one as a woody fragrance with some spice and leather. Both fresh, right? But fresh in different ways. And so on this hand, I've got the Intensa sprayed on, and this hand I got Essenza. But let's talk first about Essenza. I believe it came out in 2010. You know, I don't know who the perfumer is, but the listed notes, and these are the official notes match what's on Fragrantica, right? There's a whole bunch of notes. It's actually a more complex fragrance than you might think, right? You know, all the notes work seamlessly, and again, it's blended so well that you don't think of it as a complex fragrance, but it's one of those scents I think you can really, you know, keep smelling it and studying it, and you can pick out the notes, right? So I don't think there's any value in my reading off the notes, but I'll tell you about the notes as they come up as we talk about this. So Essenza opens up very with a huge blast of citrus, right? And it's a citrus blast like none other. Listed notes are neroli, orange, grapefruit, and bergamot. And you know, altogether though, that combination, I get more of a lemony feel. You know, it's one negative comment I saw in Fragrantica compared this to Lemon Pledge, right? No, you know, just avoid comments like that. That's my opinion for this fragrance. That is, this fragrance is a masterpiece, and you know, it opens up. Well, I don't have that opening anymore, but the huge juicy, tart, natural lemony smell, right? Citrus, and it's really nice, really strong, really projecting. But this is one of those fragrances that within the first 30 minutes, within the first 15 minutes, it's changing constantly. All right, so what you get in the dry down is different. Initially, you might think this is a simplistic citrus scent, but it's not. It's actually closer in terms of the family, the type of scent, to those kind of classy gentleman scents from the old times, like from the 50s. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So as the citrus fades, what's really interesting is that I get, you know, at times I get some green herbal nuances peeking through. And then other times I get a floral vibe from this. You know, it feels kind of clean, floral, not feminine at all, but certainly floral, right? So if you don't like florals, I think I would avoid this fragrance. It's a very citrus floral fragrance that's still masculine. The reason it's masculine, I think, is because of the base structure. And, you know, as I kept smelling it, right, of course, I still get that fresh citrus blending with this, you know, kind of herbal green feel that's so natural. It feels like, you know, you're on, you know, feels like you're out in a garden in Tuscany, that sort of feel, right? Just a summery feel. And then sort of to me, the third stage, right, is this fragrance starts smelling like, it reminded me of those kind of older classy scents. And I'll tell you one that I thought of right away. Let me see. It's something like this, right? This is Florist number 89. And this came out in 1951. I mean, it's still a great scent. I would recommend it. But I mean, it's hard to explain. You got to be familiar with these types of scents, but there's a kind of classy DNA, right? And a vintage feel. And Essenza has a little bit of that. It's not, old, outdated smelling at all, but it definitely takes me to fragrances like this. And I realize it's the rose oakmoss combination, right? I told you before, Essenza, while heavy on the citrus, also, has some obvious floral notes, including jasmine, but there's also this rose note, right? And this is utilized in those kind of very gentlemanly smelling scents. It's a little bit like a powdery rose, and mixed with the oak moss, right? I think that's what gives it this powdery feel. There was one point as this fragrance was developing when it was toward the initial spray. I thought, there's a little bit of a spice in there. I mean, now I wouldn't really call this a spicy fragrance at all. There's no obvious spice, but it's still, a citrus, neroli, floral kind of fragrance. But there is one single note, right? And that's clove. And, I saw one comment on Fragrantica where somebody said, the kind of hidden ingredient, the secret ingredient is the cloves, right? That just rounds everything out. And I think that, puts it perfectly. You don't get an obvious smell of cloves, but there's some kind of masculinity, some depth, and something supporting that kind of citrus that makes this unique, right? That's only if you were to if you're a fragrance enthusiast and you like to dig into the notes, right? If you're the average person, I think it's safe to say this is gonna be an elegant, fresh, citrus floral fragrance that smells very natural, tart, green and herbal at the same time, right? So that's what this fragrance is. So let's compare it a little bit to Colonia Intensa, all right, which I have here. And I have this dry down here. So Colonia Intensa is an interesting fragrance. And the reason is it is just as fresh, right, as any Colonia, including Essenza, but it's fresh in a totally different way. It's woody. Now, one of the big notes here that I always get is a cedar wood, right? But it's not just a cedar heavy fragrance. The opening, you get this mix of citruses, but right away you enter this woody territory. And that's what makes this fragrance, compared to Essenza, more rugged. Not soapy, but more of rugged woody. And there's a dirty element in Intensa, right? Essenza is essentially squeaky clean. It's that type of fragrance. Citrus, neroli. Intensa, there is, in addition to cedar, this gaiac wood, right? And patchouli and leather, right? There is leather here. And, leather for the average person can be a off-putting or scary note. Here, this is how you do a mass appealing leather. I think I said that before. The leather just like how the cloves, round out Essenza, the leather, makes this one perfect, right? And, the leather here is much more obvious. It's not a hidden sort of ingredient. It is, lets itself known, okay? Lets itself known. So it's leathery, but not overly dry or dirty. But there's that slight smoky, dirty, spicy feel coming from the woods, the gaiac wood in particular. And then cedar is more of this clean woody scent, right? So all in all, a clean woody scent, and the reason it keeps it fresh is there's also this ginger note in this that stays there for a good amount of time, and so this is a fresh fragrance as well, right? Despite all these notes. And one other note that is important in Intensa is the myrrh, right? Giving it the slightly, resinous, balsamic kind of quality. Okay, giving it the sweetness. Actually, I think this cedar can give it the sweetness, but I think the myrrh is really infusing some good sweetness in this fragrance. Whereas, Essenza is not a sweet fragrance, right? It's predominantly aromatic citrus. So guys, like I said, you can't go wrong with either choice. I think it just depends on, what kind of person you are. If you're looking for an everyday, kind of very safe citrus scent, if you like citrus fragrances, I would go with Essenza. You're going to be blown away. Maybe you'll be disappointed, right? Think it's overhyped, but I think you'll be blown away by how natural, how it can transport you right into the garden. But if you don't like floral notes at all in men's fragrances, that's when you should avoid Essenza and go with something like Intensa, which, if you like cedar, if you like resins, if you like smokiness, slight smokiness in your fragrances, and Intensa is the way to go. But remember, Intensa is still an ultra clean fragrance and very easy to wear and totally inoffensive, right? Both safe fragrances, but just a different flavor. All right, guys, so that's it for today, and I'll see you later.